In these next videos, we'll go over the pen tool. If you're in a class where you have a pen tool exercise assigned, make sure you set the document up just like I do. So we're going to go into Open Up Illustrator. We're going to go File, New. We'll click Print over here, and then we'll change this to inches. A standard 8.5 by 11 document is what we want. No bleed. CMYK color for this one. We'll click over here our artboards to 3, and then we'll click on Advanced Options, More Settings, so that we can get the distance between the artboards to be 2 inches. Then we'll click on Create Document, and we'll see that we have 3 artboards here. We want to go over here up to the very top where the workspace option is, and we want to set that to Essentials. And then after we do that, we want to click it one more time and click Reset Essentials. So we should have a pretty similar interface as we're working together. Okay, we're going to reserve artboard number 1 here for doing stuff that needs to be turned in. So let's start experimenting on artboard number 2. I'm going to click over the top of that artboard, then I'm going to switch this out to be the hand tool, double click on it to fill the stage up, or the artboard area with this artboard. The pen tool is located up very top near the keyboard, and if you hold down the mouse over it, you can see that it is 2 tools occupy this space. We just want to grab the pen tool. When you draw with the pen tool, I highly suggest that you draw without a fill, even if your end goal is to have the item filled. So we're just going to hit the defaults here, which will give us a white fill and a black stroke. We're going to click on the fill to make sure it's forward. Then we're going to click on the none option there. And we could also achieve that over here. So basically a fill of none, a stroke of black, and then we want to make the stroke about 1 or 2 points is good. I'm going to make mine 2 just so you can see it. Now, the pen tool, if you just need straight lines, is just a simple click, click. So if I want a straight line, for example, I click right here. That places what is known as an anchor. And then if I go over here and I click again, I get another anchor. Now, it wants to keep on going, so I'm going to hit the escape key, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab the selection tool and I'm going to click here just so you can see what we actually drew. It was just a straight line. There's an anchor at the beginning and an anchor at the end. Drawing straight lines with the pen tool is very simple, right? So you just, again, grab the pen tool, click where you want the first anchor point to be, click where you want the next one to be, click. We can keep going. Now, if we go back to where we started, then we go from what is known as an open path to a closed path. And keep your eye on the cursor as it gets close to this area. You can see it develops a little circle towards the back part of the pen. And that lets you know that that path is now closed. And then if you wanted to put a fill on this, you can just simply click on it and you can flip-flop, use the swap fill and stroke option here, and now you have this filled with black. You never want a stroke and a fill that's the same color on an object, because that just creates a lot of confusion with what the object's supposed to look like. So if you're turning in work per these videos, these are the 5 objects that you will draw. Try to make them look as much like what I've done over here as possible. Now, what I would suggest you do is just first over here is try to mimic these shapes. So pause the video now and do that. When I come back, I'll show you how I made each one of these, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I'll recreate these 5 objects here. First thing I'll do is I'll just take the regular selection tool, click and drag, make a marquee around all my practice stuff, and delete it. So first thing, we just want a simple straight line across the top. If you flip-flop the fill and the stroke, it's going to remember that. So we need to put that back to where we were with a fill of none and a stroke black. And if we look over here in the properties, once we grab the pen tool, it'll show us what the sizes were. And again, just so you can see a little bit easier, I'm going to up the stroke to 2. You're welcome to just use a 1-point stroke. So nothing could be easier across the top here to just click, move over here, and click again. And you notice we can put this at a slight angle if that's what we wanted. If we want to make sure it's perfectly straight, holding down the shift key will make sure that it constrains to the nearest 45-degree increment. So even though my mouse is way down here, hold down the shift, click, I get a perfectly straight line. And then just remember, if you want to break the connection here, the escape key is one way to do it. The other way is if you want to make sure it's deselected, the cumbersome way is to come all the way over here, grab the selection tool and click. Let me show you a quicker way to do that after I draw the next object. So for this next object, we're going to click, click, move down here, click, over here, click, up here, click. And notice those smart guides help me keep this all kind of in with the occupying the same height, because it gives me a straight line up here. And I'll just make sure in a minute that you know how to activate. So you can see I have basically the same stuff there. This line ended up being too far over there, so this is a good time to, we could either delete that and try again, but a good thing to know is that you can take the direct selection tool and we can make changes. So let's see, where do we first go a little bit too far? So this one should have been more like over here, and then I can click this anchor, and it's important that I'm right on the anchor when I'm dragging, because otherwise if I click on a path, then I move the path and the associated anchors, and then I'll just move that one back. Okay, so if you're not seeing the smart guides, that would be under view. You would just go over here, place your mouse here and release it, and then the next time you go in there you would notice that it put a check mark to make the smart guides available. Goofed earlier and said there was 5 shapes here. There's actually only 4 of them. So this one's going to be kind of a stair step, and this is going to be a closed path, meaning that we're coming all the way back around to where we started, and this closes the path. Now, the shortcut that I wanted to tell you about is the command key, and it's probably the control key on a PC. Watch the mouse when I press command now. It changes back to whatever the last of the 2 selection tools that I had. So now if I click with my mouse, I get an instant deselection of that object. All right, in this last shape, we're going to come up here, click, click, move down here towards the middle, click again, come back up here, over to here, back down around the middle area, and then we're going to go all the way over. I'm losing screen real estate, so I'm going to slide this over and then click. Oop, that's not very straight, so I'm going to Command Z to back that step up and hold down the shift key this time when I draw it, and then that's looking good. And then I come back, close the path, and then if I want to color it, I need to make sure that my stroke goes to none and my fill goes to black. And the quick, easy way to do that with this selection is just hit the flip-flop key here. Let's move on to curve shape. So how do you draw something like this? You definitely do not just click, 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 click. If I take the selection tool, the direct selection tool, and I hover over this, you can see there's an anchor here, and there is not another anchor until here, and so on. So there's a great distance between these anchors. And remember, the key elements here of a path in Illustrator is you have anchors, and then in between anchors you have paths. Before you even try to draw your first curved path, I think it's important for you to understand the difference here. If I click on the anchor over here, it looks pretty plain, just an anchor. But if I click on one of the anchors here, you can see that there are these things that come out, and they're known as handles. Now, the handle doesn't show up in the final drawing, so it's more there while we're drawing and later on if we want to edit it to help us. So again, I'll click on an anchor to wake that anchor up, and if I click on one of these handles, look what happens. And what I like to think of is that this, right where my mouse is right now on the handle, is like a magnet, and my path is kind of like a steel string. So if I pull the magnet away, it's going to pull my steel string towards that magnet. Let's go click on another anchor, and I'll just click and I'll move this anchor way out of the way here. And so if I click here and I drag this, you can see it starts to even distort the shape where it's falling apart on itself. But that's how powerful these anchors are and what they do to your shapes. So once you get your own shape made, come back, start playing around with the anchor handles just so you can see that power. Okay, I'm going to take the regular selection tool, click on that blob and delete it. And then I am going to draw a curved shape with you. So again, first thing, let's make sure that we only have a fill. I'm sorry, that we don't have a fill, and then we only have a stroke. If I go grab that pen tool, and don't accidentally grab this pen tool. It's not even a pen tool, it's called a curvature tool. Make sure you have this one that is clearly labeled as the pen tool. And then, like I said, either a stroke of 1 or 2 points is good. So let's just take this and let's try to draw a circle. Now, I'll tell you, a spoiler alert, a circle only has 4 anchors on it. So I want to click and drag. And then I want to come over here, place my second anchor, click and drag. And notice as I'm clicking and dragging, the effect that that's going to have on my path. So right now what we have is a preview of what that path is going to look like. But as soon as I release the mouse, then I actually have a path there. Come over here, click and drag, come over here, click and drag, come back to where I started. I get that little circle at the bottom or the back end of the pen tool, click and drag one more time. And for what you're going to turn in, if you were assigned, let's just draw some small circle-ish items here. Just based on what we already did. Let's try to make the second one much more oval-like. So it's going to be a much smaller click and drag here, but a larger click and drag here. Again, a small click and drag, and another one. We're not looking for perfection yet. Let's make one that's more upright, ovalish. So small click and drag, larger click and drag, smaller, larger, back to completing that. And then this one will be your choice. Just kind of get a feel for what the clicking and the dragging does and occupy the end of this space. At this point, you should pause the video and just try to make as many of these as you can. Then I'm going to show you a couple more things to try. Now try to make these 2 shapes here and here. And just so you don't get too frustrated when you pause and try to do this, this one you'll easily be able to figure out with what you already know. This one you won't, but I just want you to feel the frustration of how those 2 anchor handles move together, and then after you give that a try, I'll show you how to separate the anchor handles as you draw. So let's first duplicate this one. So if we click and we drag, and we come over here, and we click and we drag, you can see, oops, that's not working. Why is that? Well, this first handle is the one that has the emphasis on this magnetic, or this magnetic pull has on this steel string, if you will. So if I Command Z, the problem is I need to click and pull upwards. Then I can come over here, click and pull downwards, and the current handle goes in the opposite direction of the future handle, if you will. And so that's why that rounds out nice like that. Now if I move over to here and I click and I drag again, we can see the past handle has an effect on that. The future handle does not have anything to affect yet, but it does now, so it's pulling it towards it. Click and drag again, come over here, click and drag again, and then click and drag again. And if you should make something and you want to put it over here, but you realize it's too big, then you know how to do this from the previous videos. You just simply click on it to activate it with the regular selection tool, and then you come over to a corner, hold down the shift key, and you make it a little bit smaller and then put it where you want. But I don't need that one, so I'm going to delete it. Now, how did I do this? Well, if you've been paying attention and experimenting a lot, you'll see that what happens is when you click and you drag, as I mentioned before, you get one handle and you get the opposite handle of it. So I'm going to turn that around like that because I want the handle that's coming out to have an effect on this. Now I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. Now the problem is when I go over here and I want to click downwards to get that to affect that, this anchor has a negative effect on it. So I'm going to Command Z that. Now what I'm going to do this time, I'll Command Z one more time, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. It's this handle right here that's giving me problems. So what I want to do is make that work not in tandem with this one. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Option or the Alt key and swing that around. You might be thinking, well, why do they make those work that way in the first place? The truth of the matter is that when the handles work in tandem with each other, you end up getting the smoothest drawings. And here is the ultimate example of a rough edge in a drawing, right? It completely changes directions. So again, all I'm doing here is that when I draw one of these, I click, I drag. Before I even release the mouse, I hold down the Option key, I swing this around, I release the mouse and the Option key, and then I come over here, click, drag, Option key down, Option key, and you have to hold the Option key down until you release the mouse, or that's what happens. So we click, we drag, we hold down the Option key, we swing around, we release the mouse, then the Option key, then we come over here and we can draw our last one. Okay, our next two shapes. This one you can draw with what you already know. Hint, has something to do with this. And then this one takes another technique that I'll show you in the next video, but definitely try to get this one down and see how close you can come to this one.